Now let's come back to the second neurotransmitter, the neurochemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin is designed primarily for procreation. So the purpose of oxytocin was that when you meet somebody, the brain releases the oxytocin when you have engagement, the emotional connection and the engagement with what's happening. When the oxytocin gets released, it actually removes the fear and it opens you up to new experiences and new learning. Now imagine if you can build that connection with the teacher, or if it happens to be a computer, a connection between what you're doing and you're engaged, you're part of that story, what's happening. You're engaged into that story like a video game. Then you're open to new experiences. That is a fundamental to what education needs to be. So now if you think about, the idea is not that someday there will be no teachers and it's the computers who are going to teach you. Actually, it's the role the computers play is what the repetitiveness that the teacher does. You take away all of the junk that teacher does not want to do. You don't want a teacher to sit there and repeat the same lectures year after year. That part can be done by somebody else. In fact, somebody else can do it better, because you can try 10 different approaches to how kids learn and constantly adapt to that learning. In addition to that, now if you think about from a social dynamics perspective, you can change quite a few things here. That means now you can have an avatar that you can give it the personality that you would want in a friend. So you can create an emotional connection. Now not only that, you could either the avatar can teach you, but here is the great gamification or game dynamics that you can create. What if after the avatar teaches you, it forgets things, and now you have to teach the avatar before it can go and compete? Because kids learn more by teaching, not just by reading. So now, if the avatar goes and competes and with other avatars, if your avatar loses, you don't come back home and say, God, I'm such a moron. No, you say, I need to work hard and teach that avatar what it missed. Because avatar is going to come back and say, you know, I missed these 10 things. And it learned from other avatars, and I'm going to now teach you what I missed in these competitions. It teaches you, and then it says, I now forget everything I taught you. You need to teach me what I learned so I can go and compete again. That social dynamics of you teaching an avatar constantly going out and learning what you missed out and teaching you back so you can go do that. It creates a gamification and game dynamics where a person does not feel that they are the one who is a problem. They essentially become so focused because now they are helping that person be better. So in some sense, it comes out from your perspective, I need to help this poor avatar to win. I am the good guy who wants this poor thing to win. Right? So that's a great concept from a neuroscience perspective. From a structural perspective, another problem in the education that you find today, it's called fixed time variable learning. That means we all get 6 months for a semester. A teacher teaches, and some kids learn a bit more, they get A. Some people learn little, they get B. Some people learn almost nothing, they get D. And guess what happens? They all move to the next course. What if we change that from fixed time variable learning to fixed learning variable time? That means you all have to master the subject equivalent of an A. Whether you do it in 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 months. You learn at your own pace. When you master the subject, then you move on to the next advanced course. Because what happens is, if you get D here and you move on, now you already have a poor foundation and you try to build a building on top of that poor foundation, and guess what happens? At high school we say, we just can't keep up, and they drop out because there's just no foundation. Right? So you really have to start thinking, how do we completely change the education system, not only utilizing the principles of neuroscience, getting the kids to engage with the thing, making it so engaging that kids want to do that. So now you ask me, how would you ever implement such a thing in a public education system? Don't you know there are vested interests out there? Don't you know they're going to crush you before you can even get there? Well, actually, there is a way of doing that. And the way you do that is, just like any other disruption in the world happens. how does a disruption or innovation take hold? They always start at non-consumption. What I mean by non-consumption? You're not competing for the same market that they are in today. So let's go back, and I'll tell you a little bit more about education. Let's go back when IBM PCs came out. When IBM PCs came out, the biggest thing that was happening was that DAC has mini VAXs, the mini computers. It's not that the CEO of DAC was sleeping at the wheel. They knew these PCs are coming out and they may be possibly be used for something. So they went back to their customer and saying, you know, you see these PCs, this personal computer, is this something we should build? Is this something you want? You know what their customer told us? Of course not. Those things are a joke. Those are for kids. We want your computers. So they were given the feedback they were looking for. Their customers told them what they had is what they wanted. So how the disruption happened? PCs started with saying, well, let's replace the word processor and the typewriters. Next thing, they start replacing the calculators. And as they start to move from non-consumption to consumption, before they knew, the mini computers were wiped out. Now think about the same thing on education. So if you build the system based on neuroscience and engagement, and you do it, say, for teaching Chinese, there are a lot of people, kids who want to learn Chinese, and most schools don't offer it. So now, as opposed to competing with the school principals can say, oh, you want Chinese? Sure, there is an online school, you can go learn there. Now if a kid goes and learns their Chinese, and it finds really engaging and really learns, he's going to say, you know what, maybe I really don't need to take Spanish at school, maybe I'll just take it right here. Oh, I love this, my God, I wonder if I could learn history right here. And then you start to move to homeschooling market, because now, again, remember, you're not competing with the public education system. So you take with the non-consumption, you move it to partial consumption, into the homeschooling. You move into the charter schools, and you start to press against the public education system, because now kids are demanding it, because they have seen it, they're engaged, they're learning, the parents find the kids to be getting good grades, and they find them to be excited about education, and they find that they want to spend more time on learning education, just like they want to spend on Call of Duty. And now you made the education system to be better than what they get at school. It is as effective as a private tutor because it's personalized to you. It's as addictive as a video game because kids want to do it. Now, that is the education system that we need in this country. That's the education system we need around the world. So if you want to reinvent education, you want to reinvent healthcare, you want to reinvent energy, you want to reinvent and solve any problem, think innovatively, think outside the box. And it's not that because you are inside the box, you can't think outside the box, because you see problems. And all you need to do is see that as a big market. That's the opportunity. You want to build a $1 billion company, go out and solve a $10 billion problem, and you will build a $1 billion company. So I challenge each one of you, when you leave here, find out what is your calling, what is it that you are going to go do to make an impact in this world. Find what you're calling, find the most innovative way of doing it. And I can tell you that if you want to solve the shortage of energy, there's plenty of ways of doing that. You can create a synthetic bacteria that would use the solar and carbon dioxide to convert the salt water into fossil fuel. And you can have the synthetic bacteria that will excrete the fossil fuel out, and you can use that for the cars. There is nothing in this world that you can't do if you think about how you're going to make it scalable, how you're going to impact 1 billion people. Don't go out and say, when you start a company, you never go out and say, you know what, I'm going to start a company and my market size is going to be 100 people, maybe 1,000 people. You don't do that. But you know what? When you go out and want to do philanthropy, you do it the same way. I'm going to build a hospital. How many people are you going to impact? What, 100 people? And you know what? We feel good about it. That's called feel-good philanthropy. It's not called entrepreneurial philanthropy. Entrepreneurs think and say, there are 1 billion people out there who have this problem. What can I do? What technology can I build to solve that problem? So if you want to make the biggest impact, think big. Think innovatively. Think entrepreneurially. And that's how we're going to make a big impact. Thank you. Any questions? And no questions, I get 30 seconds before I walk. Hi.
I know that many of the students at Singularity University take on big projects and so on. I was curious whether there have been any breakthrough type of projects, ideas coming out of the students and student teams
I'm going to answer that, and you have a person right behind you who actually came from Singularity University, and he will tell you that what breakthrough things he's doing. But look at the things. One of the problems one of the students saw was, you see, cost of housing is too high in the developing world. Why can't we build a house for $1,000 or $5,000 that has more features and facilities than the house you have in the middle class people who have here? They came out with 3D printing houses. It uses the concrete in the mud and it just layer by layer and it builds the house. So if you think about that, what is really happening in the world is the cost of complexity with the 3D printing has come down to zero. We were told, keep it simple because complexity means cost. And this is the first time with the 3D printing you find the cost of complexity is zero. If you want to build a 1 inch by 1 inch cube, it doesn't matter how complex it is, the cost is identical because printing it layer by layer. Right? So you start thinking, so that's one of the big projects. Other project that came out last year was Get Around, essentially so you can rent your own car and make money for it while sitting in the parking garage. Right. So a lot of innovative things that are coming out is because people are being challenged to think differently, and that's how they're going out and making